Evan stood at the edge of the bustling sidewalk, clutching a crumpled $15 bill. The city hummed around him. Car horns, chatter, the clatter of coins in a street performer's hat. His eyes landed on a man sitting against a brick wall, his coat tattered, his hands weathered. Leo, the name scratched on a cardboard sign beside him, looked up with a faint smile. Evan hesitated. He'd meant to grab lunch, but something about Leo tugged at him, a quiet dignity beneath the dirt. "Here," Evan said, thrusting the money forward. "Get yourself some food." Leo's eyes crinkled. "Thanks, man. Means more than you know." Evan nodded and walked off, imagining Leo heading to the diner across the street. But as he glanced back, Leo was already on his feet, scanning the crowd. Evan frowned. Curiosity piqued and lingered near a newsstand to watch. A young mother approached, her face tight with worry, a toddler clinging to her leg. "I can't afford his medicine," she muttered, loud enough for Evan to catch. "He's burning up, and the pharmacy won't budge." Leo stepped closer, holding out a few bills. "Take this. It's not much, but it might get you what he needs." The woman blinked, stunned, then accepted with a shaky "thank you." Evan's jaw dropped. That was his $15, meant for a burger, not a kid's fever. Before he could process it, Leo shuffled toward a woman shivering under a bus stop awning. She clutched a worn purse, muttering about missing her doctor's appointment. Leo pressed more of the cash into her hand. "This'll get you there and back," he said. "Hope it goes well." The woman's eyes welled up. "You're an angel." Evan's chest tightened. He'd given Leo money out of pity, expecting a quick meal. Not this. Across the street, a man in a stained hoodie approached Leo, his voice low. "Been days since I ate proper." Leo handed over the last of the bills. "Take it. I'll find more food. I always do." Evan couldn't move. Leo had nothing, literally nothing, yet he'd turned $15 into a lifeline for three strangers. It wasn't just generosity. It was something deeper, something Evan couldn't name. He thought of his own life, stable job, warm apartment, and felt a pang of shame. Leo didn't even hesitate. Later at a coffee shop, Evan overheard two baristas chatting. One said, "I saw this guy give his last sandwich to a kid on the street. Said he needed a blanket more, but all I had was food." The other nodded. "Reminds me of that time I saw a homeless guy hand over his shirt in the cold. Kept saying someone else needed it more." Evan's mind spun. Was this normal? Did people like Leo just exist? He remembered his mom, Grace, once mentioning a rough patch when he was a baby, something about a kind stranger. He'd never pressed her for details, but now he wondered. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. Leo's face haunted him, those crinkled eyes, that quiet strength. He'd given expecting nothing, but it had shifted something in Evan. He wanted to know more about this man who turned a handout into a chain of help. The next morning, Evan woke with a restless itch. Leo's face lingered in his mind. Those crinkled eyes, the way he'd handed out Evan's $15 like it was nothing and everything at once. He grabbed his jacket and headed back to the corner, the city waking up around him. Delivery trucks rumbling, pigeons scattering from crumbs. The cardboard sign still leaned against the wall, Leo scrawled in faded marker, but the man himself was gone. In his place sat a woman, her hands cupped around a steaming styrofoam cup, her scarf fraying at the edges. "You looking for someone?" she asked, her voice rough but warm. "Yeah," Evan said, shifting his weight. "Guy named Leo. You know him?" She smiled, revealing a chipped tooth. "I'm Mura. He's around here somewhere, probably off helping somebody. He gave me this coffee yesterday, said he'd bought 3 and gave one to a guy at the lights." Evan raised an eyebrow. "He does that a lot, huh?" "More than you'd believe," Mira said, taking a sip. "Last week I was a mess, couldn't scrape together lunch money. He showed up with a bag of snacks and a water bottle, said he wished he could do more." Evan crouched beside her, the pavement biting through his jeans. "I gave him $15 yesterday, thought he'd grab a burger or something. Instead, he spent it all on other people." Mira chuckled, a low, raspy sound. "That's Leo for you, doesn't keep much for himself. Says kindness comes back around." "You think it does?" Evan asked, genuinely curious now. She shrugged, her scarf slipping a little. "Maybe. I gave him a burger today. Some guy at the drive-thru ordered me 2. Felt right to pass one on." Evan nodded, letting that sink in. He'd seen Leo turn his small gift into a chain reaction. Medicine for a sick kid, bus fare for a woman, a meal for a hungry man. It wasn't just money. It was hope, handed out like it grew on trees. "Where's he at now?" Probably down by the soup kitchen, Mira said. Likes to check on folks there? You sticking around? Yeah, Evan said. Want to talk to him again? They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the street come alive. A vendor hawked pretzels, a kid zipped by on a skateboard, and Evan found himself wondering about Mira. How'd you end up here? He asked, then winced. Sorry, that was rude. Nah, it's fine, she said. Lost my job a couple years back. Waitressing gig. Rent piled up, and here I am. Leo's been a friend since day one. Keeps me sane. Evan nodded, thinking of his own cushy apartment, the steady paycheck from his graphic design job. He'd never known that kind of edge. He's something else, he said. Understatement, Mira replied. One time he found this old guy shivering. No coat, nothing. Leo gave him his own shirt, said someone else needed it more. I told him he'd freeze, but he just laughed it off. Evan's eyes widened. That's insane. That's Leo, she said simply. Their conversation paused as footsteps approached. Leo appeared, a small paper bag in hand, the faint smell of bread wafting from it. Hey, Mira, Evan, right? Yeah, Evan said, standing. Good to see you. What's in the bag? Leftovers, Leo said, setting it down. Lady at the bakery tossed me some rolls, enough to share. Mira grinned. You're a saint. Nah, Leo said, waving her off. Just don't like seeing folks hungry. Evan crossed his arms, studying him. I saw what you did with my money yesterday. The kid, the woman, the guy. Why? Leo scratched his beard, his nails rasping against stubble. I don't have much, but there's always someone with less. I help by name when I can. Food, money, a ride. Makes it real, you know? You don't keep anything for yourself? Evan pressed. I manage, Leo said, his tone light. Folks like you keep me going. Been lucky that way. Evan frowned, unconvinced. Lucky? You're out here every day. Leo shrugged. Could be worse. I've got the sky, good company, he nodded at Mira, and enough to get by. Seen folks with nothing but a corner and a cough. Mira piped up. He's right. Some don't make it through winter. Leo's tougher than he looks. They talked longer, the sun climbing higher. Evan learned Leo had been on the streets for years, lost a construction job after an injury, then his place when the bills outran him. He didn't dwell on it, though, steering the conversation to lighter things. A stray dog he'd fed, a kid who'd drawn him a picture once. Mira chimed in with her own tales, how she'd once traded a scarf for a sandwich, how Leo always seemed to show up when she needed a laugh. Eventually, Evan pulled out his wallet. Look, I brought something. He handed over a grocery bag, bread, peanut butter, apples, a few granola bars. Thought you could use it. Leo's face lit up. You didn't have to, but thanks. Look what he brought us, Mira. Exactly what I needed. Mira peeked inside. You're spoiling us, Evan. Least I could do, he said, watching them divide the hall. His phone buzzed, his mom Grace texting about dinner. Bring a friend if you want, she'd added. Evan glanced at Leo. Hey, want to meet my mom? She's cooking tonight. Leo hesitated, brushing crumbs off his coat. Don't want to intrude. You won't, Evan insisted. Come on, it'll be good. Mira nudged Leo. Go, I'll hold down the fort. All right, Leo said, relenting with a grin. Lead the way. The walk to Evan's house was quiet, Leo taking in the tree-lined streets, the neat lawns. Nice area, he murmured. Grew up here, Evan said. Mom worked hard to keep it. At the door, Grace greeted them, her apron dusted with flour. Her smile was warm until it locked on Leo, then froze. You, she whispered, her voice cracking. You're the one. Leo squinted, tilting his head. Ma'am? Grace stepped closer, hands trembling. Years ago, when Evan was a baby, we were homeless. You helped us. Food, blankets, every day till I got work again. Your name's Leo, right? Leo's eyes widened, then softened. I remember you, little guy in the car seat. You're doing well now? Thanks to you, Grace said, tears spilling. I looked for you after we got back on our feet, but you'd moved on. I figured you'd left the streets. Evan's heart thudded. Wait, you were homeless? Grace turned to him, her face raw. Yeah, sweetheart. Your dad bailed when I got pregnant, said he didn't want kids. I refused to give you up, so he left. Then my job let me go after I took time off for you. Couldn't keep up with rent. Ended up in the car. Leo found us one night, brought soup, a coat, kept checking in. I don't know how we'd have eaten otherwise. Leo waved a hand, almost sheepish. Just did what I could, love seeing folks I helped thrive. Evan stared between them, the world tilting. Leo wasn't just some guy he'd met, he'd shaped their lives before Evan could even remember. Why didn't you tell me? He asked Grace. Didn't want you carrying that, she said. It was a dark time, but short. Leo made it bearable. Leo shifted, uncomfortable with the praise. You'd have managed without me. Tough lady, you were. Not tough enough, Grace said softly. You gave me more than food. You gave me dignity, made me feel human when I'd forgotten how. Evan sank into a chair, mind racing. He thought of Mira's stories, the baristas he'd overheard yesterday, one saying, I gave a sandwich to this guy, but he needed a blanket more. Another mentioning a homeless man who'd handed over his shirt in the cold. Leo fit that mold, selfless to a fault, turning scraps into lifelines. And now, here he was, tied to Evan's own past. Dinner's ready, Grace said, wiping her eyes. Let's eat. They moved to the table, the smell of roast chicken filling the air. Evan watched Leo, a man who'd given everything, his money, his shirt, his time, and wondered how someone so generous could still be out there scraping by. The answer, he realized, was sitting across from him. Because people like Leo didn't stop, and maybe, just maybe, that's what kept the world turning. The dining room glowed softly under the warm light of the chandelier, the clatter of forks against plates punctuating the quiet that followed Grace's story. Evan watched Leo across the table, the older man eating slowly, almost reverently, as if savoring every bite of Grace's roast chicken. The air felt heavy, not with tension, but with something unspoken, a thread tying them all together that Evan was only beginning to unravel. Mira had stayed behind at the corner, but her words about kindness coming back around lingered in his mind, mingling with the weight of his mother's tears. Grace broke the silence, her voice soft but firm. Leo, why are you still out there? After all you've done for people, for us. Leo set his fork down, wiping his mouth with a napkin Grace had insisted he use. Luck's been thin, he said, his tone matter of fact. Lost my footing years ago. Job went, then the roof over my head. At my age, it's hard to climb back. Evan frowned, leaning forward. But you give everything away. That $15 I handed you, you could have eaten for days. Maybe you'd have more if you kept some for yourself. Leo chuckled, a low rumble that seemed to shake off the question. Maybe, but I get by. People like you make it work. Always have. Grace shook her head, her eyes still glassy. That's not enough. You shouldn't have to scrape by after what you've given. Come live with us. We've got space. Evan's old room sitting empty, plenty of food, space for you to breathe. Leo blinked, caught off guard. He rubbed the back of his neck, his weathered fingers tracing old scars. That's too much, Grace. You've already done enough feeding me tonight, digging up those old memories. You're not a burden, she said, her voice rising with a fierceness Evan rarely heard. It let me thank you finally for keeping us alive when I was at my lowest. I've carried that debt too long. Evan nodded, leaning in. She's right. You'd be doing us a favor. I mean, come on, Leo. You've been out there long enough. Leo looked between them, his crinkled eyes softening. He took a slow breath, then smiled. Well, a wise man once told me all the kindness you put out finds a way back. Guess I can't argue with that. They laughed, the sound breaking the quiet like a stone through glass. The tension melted, replaced by something lighter, a shared warmth that filled the room. Grace stood to clear the plates, and Evan joined her, stacking dishes in the sink while Leo lingered at the table, sipping water from a glass he held like it was fragile. In the kitchen, Evan nudged his mom. He's incredible, isn't he? Gave my $15 to strangers, no hesitation, like it was nothing. Grace smiled, rinsing a plate. It's more than that. When he helped us, I felt seen, not just pitied. He'd sit with me, talk to me like I wasn't invisible, made me believe I could get us out. Evan thought of Mira's stories, the baristas he'd overheard, people giving what little they had, a sandwich here, a shirt there. People do it all the time, don't they? Like that guy who gave his last sandwich to a kid even though he needed a blanket more. Or the one who handed over his shirt in the cold saying someone else needed it. Leo's not alone in that. Yeah, Grace said, her hands stilling in the soapy water. And it changes you, makes your heart lighter somehow. For them, it's hope, maybe even a reason to keep going. Evan glanced back at Leo, who'd pulled a worn photo from his pocket, a faded shot of a younger him with a dog grinning under a tree. He caught Evan looking and held it up. Old pal of mine, found him on the street, fed him scraps. Best friend I ever had. Sounds like you, Evan said, grinning. Always feeding somebody. Leo laughed. Guess so. Kept me company till he couldn't anymore. Later, Grace showed Leo to the guest room, an old space with a twin bed, a quilt she'd sewn years ago, and a window overlooking the backyard. "It's not fancy," she said, "but it's yours." Leo set his small bag down, a tattered duffel with a broken zipper. "Fancier than I've had in years. Thank you, Grace." "Sleep well," she said, patting his arm before slipping out. Evan lingered in the doorway. "Need anything?" "Nah," Leo said, sitting on the bed. "This is plenty, more than plenty." "All right," Evan said. "Night, Leo. Night, kid." The next morning, Evan woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of voices. He shuffled downstairs to find Grace and Leo in the kitchen, her flipping pancakes, him stirring cream into a mug. "Morning," Evan said, grabbing a plate. "Morning," Grace replied. "Thought we'd send you off with a full stomach." Leo nodded. "She's spoiling me already." After breakfast, Evan drove back to Leo's old corner, a bag of last night's leftovers in hand. Mira was there, bundled in her scarf, sketching on a scrap of cardboard. She looked up as he approached. "Hey, stranger, where's Leo?" "With us now," Evan said, handing her the bag. "Moved him in last night." Mira's face split into a grin. "No kidding? Good on you." "He deserves it." "Full circle," Evan said, echoing her words from yesterday. "Here's some chicken and potatoes." She peeked inside. "Exactly what I needed. Thanks, Evan." "Anytime," he said, watching her dig in. He thought of Leo's quiet giving, Grace's gratitude, the way it all looped back. It wasn't just one act, it was a ripple, stretching across years, touching lives he'd never even seen. Back home, Grace was tidying the kitchen when Evan walked in. "Dropped off the leftovers," he said. "Mira's happy for Leo." "She should be," Grace said. "He's a rare one." "Yeah," Evan agreed, leaning against the counter. "You think he'll stay?" "I hope so," she said. "He's family now, whether he knows it or not." That afternoon, Evan found Leo in the backyard, sitting on a rickety chair Grace had dragged out from the garage. He was whittling a stick with a pocket knife, shavings curling at his feet. "Settling in?" Evan asked, sitting beside him. "Trying to," Leo said. "Feels strange, having a roof again. Quiet." "You'll get used to it," Evan said, "or we'll make it noisier." Leo laughed. "Don't tempt me. Might start feeding the neighborhood strays." "Wouldn't surprise me," Evan said. "You're good at that." They sat in easy silence, the wind rustling the trees. Evan thought of the stories he'd heard, Mira's burger, the barista's tales, Leo's endless giving. It wasn't just survival, it was healing, a quiet mending of something broken. For Leo, for Grace, maybe even for him. "Ever think about what's next?" Evan asked. Leo paused, knife still. "Not much. Day at a time's been my way, but this feels like a start, thanks to you and your mom." "Thank you," Evan said, "for everything." Leo smiled, small and real. "Guess we're even then." This wasn't just a roof over Leo's head, it was a circle closing, a debt paid in ways none of them had expected. And as the sun dipped low, casting gold across the yard, Evan knew it wouldn't stop here. Kindness like Leo's didn't fade. It grew, quiet and steady, lifting everyone it touched.